Today on the Rise of the Challenge podcast.
What I went through growing up, I definitely went through a lot of bullying and abuse at the hands of others. And like it was the late 80s in New Jersey, right? So like that just is what that is there. That's there. And I carried a lot of anger. I was just really pissed off with a lot to prove. And I found it's like, hey, you can kick my ass on the playground, right? Like you guys can do that, but you're not going to do it in business. So again, I have this relationship with money is like, I'll out earn you, I'll out income you.
Welcome to the Rise of the Challenge podcast. Joined today, he's an entrepreneur, author, and speaker. It's Matt Shoup. How are you doing today, Matt?
I'm good. How you doing?
Doing good. We are so excited to have you on the show to talk about your rise to the challenge. What we like to do with all of our guests is go right to the beginning. Talk about where you're from and what did you like doing growing up?
I'm from New Jersey originally, northern New Jersey, and growing up, I was not the popular kid, the sports kid. I dreamed of playing baseball, but I wasn't that great at baseball, and I honestly got picked on and bullied a lot. So I found just purpose and fun and certainty and some skill set in business when I was 10 years old. We moved out to Colorado. I asked my parents for money for a boombox. They said no. Go find a way to make your own money. And I took their lawnmower and went down the street, knocked on doors. I'm like, hey, I'm good at selling stuff and, working hard. So that's what I love doing as a kid.
Being a 10-year-old, coming up with a business plan and all of that, what do you think is special about that at that age and what it taught you growing up to where you are today with business?
I think looking back, it makes me very aware when I see other kids that are creative. Like I was not a sit down, shut up, fit in the box kind of kid. I was really smart. I was really good at school subjects. So I'd get through school just to go work. But I love now seeing, that entrepreneurial spirit in a kid, right? Like they don't conform. They've got creativity, they've got ideas, and then the willingness to make that happen. So I love pouring into kids, helping them with that. So if I see that, I'll go, hey, tell me about your business, or have you thought about a business? But I think just for me, what I learned was that grit and determination to set a goal, go out and accomplish that goal. And it all depends on you and your efforts was a really great skill set to have.
With growing up in Colorado, you probably had to change your game plan when it came to the winter time. Did that ever change the business plan, doing like snow shoveling and all that?
Yeah, the lawn mowing went to snow shoveling in the winter. And then when I was at school and, there'd be seasons where there really wasn't any of that, I was peddling candy bars out of the locker. But, they shut that down. It was competing too much with school store. And I got in-school suspension. I remember 3 days of sitting in this little closet of a room in a little cubicle, just having to write out why I will never sell candy bars and compete with the school store again.
That's just wild. In-school suspension. Nothing wrong as a kid. I was just being competitive with my own school, basically.
You would have thought I punched somebody, or jumped a kid. I don't know, selling Reese's Pieces and Reese's peanut butter cups, getting suspended.
What did your parents think about when you were able to show them what you did with the business and being able to afford that boombox?
Yeah, they drove me to go get it, so I definitely think seeing some proudness of an accomplishment in the child. They really forced me to that comment, go find a way to make your own money, right, was one of the catalysts, right? And I don't know the intention. It's like maybe they were going to give it to me, see if I'd work, mash it. Nope, they made me earn the whole thing. So they're like, cool, here you go, celebrated. And they're like, whatever else you need, whatever else you want, go get to work.
As you're growing up, did you have anyone that was a big motivator or inspiration for you?
I again, like my environment was very much feeling like I didn't fit in. I dreamed of being a professional baseball player, and I think I played one season of baseball. So I remember, falling in love with like the Oakland A's and Jose Canseco and all the Ricky Henderson and the sports stars, but not directly. That really influenced my my business path. I went to school just to get through school so I could go work and find ways to get and make money. But really I found a lot of influences. I started working hourly jobs. So that went just to working, into leadership positions at restaurants and other places. And then those, bosses were definitely people that drove and would find that work ethic that I had.
Do you feel that working at a young age helped you become to where you are today? And it didn't really play an effect with your personal life because you mentioned that you were doing the things that you enjoyed, which was working, making money, and things like that, where it kind of put that over, I'm going to a party or something.
Oh, I did the parties too. We'll talk about that. No, it did. I think, when and we instilled this in our kids. I think the first big thing that they asked for, when they were 6, 7 years old, were the little video game, Nintendo Switches. And I'm like, hey, those cost money.
Yep.
Here's how you make money. So I think to learn the value of money and work ethic at a young age was great. And I talked to some parents, they're like, no, we're gonna cover everything for our kids till they're 18 and let them enjoy being kids. And it's like, yeah, but I think there's a formative part of those years to where might have missed the boat. I know I've met a lot of 19, 20, 21 year olds, and they got a little too used to that.
Hmm.
And they're not super excited nor inspired nor skilled to just go put in a good day's work.
See, I'm glad my parents did the same thing. Like, even if it was chores around the house or cutting the grass, like to me, I earned it and I worked hard. And I think I still have that same work ethic that I want to work to earn that reward and have that same mentality. And I will put in the hours to get there. I don't want to be handed something. There's times where my parents paid for things, but I wanted to get the job when I could and then go out and earn it.
Yep, love it. No, I love it. Cut from the same cloth, man.
You talked about working and getting jobs. Was that the game plan after high school, or was college the next step for you?
So yeah, the it's funny, the snow shoveling, the lawn mowing, the candy peddling. I think it was late middle school when I got suspended. And I'm like, well, that kind of stifled the entrepreneurial spirit. And I remember my first job working for somebody was a busboy at a Chinese restaurant. So I had a friend of mine's parents owned a Chinese restaurant, and that guy's working all the time. He grew up in that restaurant and we were good friends. So like we would hang out, play video games, and then he's like, hey, come to the restaurant and hang out in the restaurant. So then I just kind of by accident started working, and they're like, hey, do you want to work a job here? And that turned into the hourly jobs. And I wasn't like, oh, I want to go back to business. I want to go back to business. I just wanted to work, make money, buy a car, buy some cool shoes, whatever that
Mhm.
was. But then in college, I'm sitting in an 8 a.m. biology class at Colorado State University. So I graduated in 99 from local high school in Loveland. And I just went right up the road to Fort Collins, Colorado. And I didn't know what I was going to do, nor what I wanted to study. And this gentleman comes in and he goes, hey guys, listen up. I've got an opportunity for, summer internship. You can make a bunch of money. And he started talking about, hey, you can learn about sales and marketing and business. And that's kind of reigniting all that childhood stuff. And he says, fill out a card. I fill out the card. I go through their, recruiting process, really. Work for a college painting company. And that company, the people there that I was surrounded with really reconnected me with that childhood entrepreneurial spirit.
Working for that painting company, what was a memorable part about that job or that opportunity?
There was two things. There was definitely a culture there where they vetted out the people that weren't going to work hard. They vetted out the people that thought they were going to do well without the work. I mean, there's a lot of attrition there. So they'd hire 100 to get maybe 20, 25 students through the summer. And that was a great culture. They had a very fun culture. And this wasn't the company as a whole, but a lot of the local Colorado chapter that I hung out with. I mean, they were working hard and they were playing really hard too. And I just loved that they were there to teach and foster entrepreneurship. That was the first time for me in the educational environment, although they were external from the school, that there was just an opportunity to really dig in and learn more about business.
Did it challenge you in any way? Did it get hard doing that job or that opportunity?
It did. Yeah. I found that I love, marketing, sales. I got no problem knocking on doors, cold calling, just that repetitive reach out, just putting myself in front of somebody I've never met, and just getting told no. What I just was never, I'm still never a fan of. And I run a, multi-million dollar painting company. I don't like the painting. I don't like that aspect of it. I suck at painting. And it's just not my favorite thing. It doesn't get me excited to manage the delivery and the production side of things. But I love the sales. I love the marketing.
Did that internship or that opportunity really get you to where you are? Did it lead into the next stage in your career?
It did. So I worked with those guys 4 years from 99 to 2003. And, the joke was always like, hey, this isn't a sexy business, guys, but you can make good money. And I was just really concerned about the optics, right? So like I was concerned what people thought. They go, what are you doing this summer? I'm running a painting business. Oh, you're doing painting. Like, well, I made six figures over 4 years. Yeah, I spent three times what I made. So I graduate in '03, marry my college sweetheart in '04. And I put on the suit and tie and I wouldn't say talked into, but pretty influenced by a gentleman who's in the mortgage industry. Started hanging out with him. He's flashing the cash, driving the nice car, making a bunch of money. And I'll kind of get back to this, but money became, I've got this really interesting relationship with money and making money. We'll kind of park that and come back. But I was really turned on by the money. I'm like, I'm going to go be a mortgage guy. So this bank hires me. And again, I mean, it was like being back in school again at 10 years old. They're like, sit down, shut up, follow the bank rules, do the bank thing. And I was just hating life, just absolutely hating life. And I was planning to leave that job. And I got kicked out and fired from the bank. So yeah, so the college penny internship, it set me up not thinking I was going to come back to like really one of the only things that I knew at the time. But that event really forced me to that. I had no other option and really no other skill sets at that point.
Did that firing kind of play in a mental health state? Like, did it kind of mess with you in a way?
Oh yeah, no, I mean, I because of what I went through growing up, I mean, I definitely went through a lot of bullying and abuse at the hands of others, and like it was the late '80s in New Jersey, right? So like that just is what that is. That's there, and I carried a lot of anger. I was just really pissed off with a lot to prove, and I found it's like, hey, you can kick my ass on the playground, right? Like you guys can do that, but you're not going to do it in business. So again, I have this relationship with money is like I'll out earn you, I'll out income you. And getting fired, I literally bank president calls me in the office and he said, put all your shit in a box. That's what he said. You're fired. This was the new president. He didn't want to meet me. He didn't want to get to know me. I didn't know what was happening. And I'm like, what? And I just remember I gave him the two-finger salute, put all my stuff in the box. I kicked the door open and I walk out to the parking lot and I'm just so pissed. I mean, that was the overriding emotion. So yeah, you talk about the mental health of that. I think just the rejection that brought up a lot from, childhood years and things like that. So I just default to, okay, well, I'm going to go prove myself and we'll see you later. Going to go start a business. And I figured that out in about a 12-minute drive home from the bank to little condo that we had just purchased.
And that's definitely shows from growing up where you had that same mentality where proving people wrong and really not letting something stop you. Like the in-school suspension didn't stop you from where you going after
Yeah.
that, getting into the business and internship. Where that firing, you're like, okay, my next chapter is about to begin. I'm going to go do something that I enjoy doing and can keep going because you weren't going to let it stop you.
Well, and I think too, just that environment's not for everybody. And I think for anybody, wherever they're at in life, plugging, their skill set, their passion, what they're great at, what the world needs into an environment and a culture that allows that to thrive, where those really connect
Yeah.
and intermingle was huge. And then if you're in a place where that doesn't happen, it's a slow death for sure.
With starting the company, what was the most challenging part getting that going? You talked about how where you are at multi-million dollars, but it's
Yeah.
not always easy getting to that big of a state of numbers.
Yeah. What I share with people is I had 4 years of previous experience getting very good, right, at the marketing and the sales. Again, I've never liked the painting portion of it. I did have a good couple of connections and relationships with painters from college painting days, but I think the biggest challenge, it wasn't the business so much. I knew just from past history, if I put in X amount of work, that I would get X amount of business. But I'm coming out of like the college painting market was this little bubble, but and I was stepping out of this college environment into like, all right, I'm here with the big boys competing at a big business level with other businesses in town that have been here 30, 20, 30, 40 years. Back then you would compete in the phone book, right? So
Mhm.
whoever was in the phone book the longest bought the biggest ad color always beat out black and white. I mean, I remember who those leaders were. And I'd walk into the paint store and I mean, you would hear them. Some of them, they'd scream right at you or they'd whisper about you and some would call you out into the parking lot.
Did you ever feel that you were the type of person that could lead a team, being a person, the head of a company, and be able to lead a group?
Back then, I wasn't good at that. And I don't know that I really even thought about that. I think one of I take a lot on myself. So I'm like, you know what? If you can't do it and it's not done right, I'll just do it myself. So I was actually pretty poor at leadership and I had to hire people. I was definitely hiring and managing people right off the bat. But it was about 5, 6 years into business that I'm working with a coach and he just kind of slaps me upside the head and says, man, you got a big revolving door. You're kind of a jerk to work for. There's a difference between being a boss and being a leader. Those are two different things. And he's like, you're not doing great at either. Definitely not doing great at the leadership thing.
Did the business ever put on any stress for you?
Yeah, every day there's some kind of stress. Yeah, I mean it's I have a podcast now that just came out, Gentle Art of Leadership, and interviewing an entrepreneur today, and it is for me every day it's this roller coaster. You close a big deal, high of high, sell big celebration with a team member, and then boom, you might get sued, and it's just crazy. So yeah, it creates an emotional ride and definitely stress.
With any of those lows that you've experienced throughout the time of the business, how were you able to rise to the challenge through those?
Think you've got to pull back. I heard a great statement today on my podcast. I'm talking to my guest, and I think it's easy to say, oh, the lows when you're as low as you can go, there's only up from there. It's like, yeah, but the lows really suck. And what he had talked about is don't focus so hard on riding the high or like wallowing in the low, but just remember why you got into it. Like remember on the high, it's not gonna be like that all day, every day. Same with the low, but just focusing on that purpose and that greater vision and why you're doing this. Big thing for me is 2 years into the business, my son was born. 3 years after that, my daughter was born. And Emily's big goal, like she wanted to be a stay-at-home mom and raise those kids, up to right about where they're at right now. And that was super important for me that I could allow her to do that.
With those challenges, what has been the greatest accomplishment of overcoming those? You talked about how family is a big part of in being able to let your wife be a stay-at-home mom. What are other accomplishments that you are proud of that when your kids get older, you're able to show them if you put your mind to it, you can accomplish anything and you can do this?
Yeah, the business. I love the business story. I come onto a lot of podcasts because of the business story. But I mean, at the end of the day, I want my kids to grow up and have it better than I had it, and I really want them to have godly values where they know how to take care of other people, where they know how to treat other people, and literally, like my North Star is when somebody meets one of my kids. Emily and I were just talking about this, and they go, "Hey, we just met your son Riley or your daughter Haley. What a great person, what a great leader. She was so kind, so compassionate. Like that's way more important than any of this business success, which I love sharing it. But you can work yourself to death and totally miss those moments with family and the things that really matter.
Do you hope that the kids, when they get older, they're part of the business with you? Is that the goal or?
If they want to be, I know people, I know adults, like grown adults now that were forced into the family business and they feel like they have no option, right? Like dad was a car dealer, grandpa was a car dealer. I've got to be a car dealer, but I really wanted to go coach golfing, right? For example. And they just feel stuck in that. I would say now, based on the kiddos' personalities, Riley wants to play professional football. And he's like, hey, if that doesn't work out, I want to go into some kind of trade, some kind of construction trade. So I don't think he has interest in taking over the family business. My daughter, though, she's out hustling. She's got a cookie baking business. She makes bracelets for kids at school. So maybe she will, but that's not our exit plan or our transition plan. Is to force them to do that.
Learning more about your story off camera, one big part was debt and the financial aspect. And that is a huge thing that some people that are listening maybe have experienced also. Talk about that experience for you.
Yeah, I mean, just the money formula. I didn't have a good financial blueprint. So I would first share with people if you're in debt, you realize, hey, I don't want to be in debt. I want to get out of debt. Is like, don't beat yourself up. I mean, there's a lot of people that I meet, they just didn't know any better. And they finally realize that, you now there's debt you can leverage and there's different perspectives on that. But if you're just talking about straight consumer debt, credit card, car loans, don't beat yourself up if you find yourself in debt. And just remember, like, it is really a simple formula of money in and money out, and just having margin between those two things, right? Either raise your income, decrease your expenses, and you've got to make a sacrifice with something, right? It's working more, it's eating out less, finding a side hustle, whatever that is. And again, like, I just had to learn that through the experience of, like, oh crap, I married Emily. Hey, what was your financial upbringing? Well, I'm kind of a penny pincher. I don't have any debt. Then she found out how much debt I brought into the marriage, and she's like, oh, we should figure this out.
Was that ever a concern when at the beginning of the relationship, was the debt aspect of it, or was she wanting to be by your side, help you through that, even though you did not want to put it on her?
It's funny. She was a guest on my podcast that came out last week, and we were talking about the reality of she didn't know. We got married young. We were 22 and 23, and we didn't talk about it. Like, we didn't sit down and compare P&Ls and balance sheets or anything like that, or checkbooks. She kind of grew up in an environment where dad took care of the money and the bills, and I was always good at that. I had the little checkbooks, was always balancing them, but we never had that talk. And it was funny. When I started doing a lot of podcasts and I went back and actually calculated the debt, she's like, we were in that much debt. I had I had no idea. So it was just part of that marriage journey. Not saying that's a good thing to do to anybody listening. If you're young and you're married, one of the biggest causes for fighting and turmoil and separation possibly is that financial aspect. So you've got to get on that same page.
You just talked about going on other shows and sharing your story. What's been the biggest journey doing that for you? What do you see as the mission when you're sharing your story with listeners all over the world?
Yeah, is that there's so much out there right now in social media. Everybody paints this picture of perfection, right? You go scroll in your feed and it's like, oh, I make millions of dollars and this, and it's so easy, and buy my program. I'm like, no, like, there's work to be done. And I think so many people are in those places where I was. They're in debt, they're let go, they've gotten beat up and kicked down. And I just want to share my story of, like, on paper, based on where I came from, what I experienced, I should be dead in prison or selling drugs. A combination of all of those things. And the choices I made and the actions I took really led my life in a different direction. And my faith in God plays a huge part of that. I was almost dead, overdosed on drugs and alcohol in a field at 19, like in the middle of a cold Colorado evening. So that story is important for other people to hear. And even if it's just like one person on this podcast, that they're in a place like that and they need hope, they need answers, they need resources. That's why I get up and do this every day.
I love that you mentioned people posting on social media where people want to show that perfect lifestyle. And we
Yeah.
all know that it's not perfect. They are just putting on this front because that gets the views, that gets the clicks. I think a
Yep.
lot of people now are connecting to the people that are real and authentic and really sharing what they've been challenged with. And that
Yep.
shows the connection in their communities. And I think more people are connecting to that than, oh, I look like this, I live this lifestyle, I got the fancy cars. Cool, you had that, but you didn't have that your whole entire life. You had to work to get to that spot.
Yep. Yeah, there's that whole before and after picture, and everybody sees the after picture. I'm like, the after picture ain't that good because there was some lighting, there was some Photoshop, there were some things there. And then I think it makes people beat themselves up even more about, like, hey, I'm at the before picture right now. And a couple takeaways I share, just like back to my 20-year-old self, is just things take time. I'm in a new venture right now, right? I just wrote my second book, Painted Baby, launching a podcast. And I'll even find myself going, oh, it's not moving or growing as fast. Those things just take time. You've got to keep going at it.
When did you know that you wanted to be an author and write?
Ooh, that's a fun story. I initially, when I wrote my first book, 2011, I wrote a book, Become an Award-Winning Company. And at that point, it was more of a bucket list. Hey, I wrote a book, right? There's a huge difference between writing a book and being an author. If you write a book, you're technically an author, but like being an author, identifying as an author, that is who you are, and you're working on that craft every day. I didn't know anything about that. I thought if you wrote a book, it would sell itself. I thought writing the book was the hard part. And I found out really quickly that you've got to market that book, 10 times more than you spent the energy writing it. So when I wrote my second book, which was just a little over a decade later, I've spent a lot of the last years getting some really great mentorship and really connecting with, like, as an author, you've got to have a purpose for a particular group of people, of readers, of an audience, and they have a problem, and you've got a unique lesson through a story to share with them and solve for them. And that's what Painted Baby is all about. It's connecting with clients through brave and vulnerable storytelling. It's literally sharing your worst business or personal or professional nightmares where you've screwed up to connect with people, right? It's showing that before picture.
Mhm.
And when you do that, other people go, wow, like this guy's human too. He's not all perfect and polished and postured like everything on social media. And then, they'll share a little bit, and you just build deeper connections that way. So I kind of side noted off of your question, but it was really leading into this second book that I'm like, this is a purpose. This is a journey. This is something that I identify as, and I'm going all in on it.
Has there been a reaction or a message that you've received from someone that's read your book and you kind of were like connected to it, or you were like, oh, I didn't think about it this point of view that they had on what you were sharing?
The coolest feedback, when I sat down with my publisher and we worked on the book, you do this kind of North Star exercise where they actually ask you, they say, hey, imagine you are um, hovering over, two people at a bar. They had a couple drinks, they're loosened up, they're just going to be brutally honest about your book to your ideal reader. What are they saying? What are they talking about? So initially on that call, I said, that, hey, that their business is growing and better, and they're connecting better with clients and their team. And I'm like, and I feel like there's this bigger purpose, that it makes their life better in other domains and other components too. So I write the book, release the book, and I'm out to dinner with my wife and a couple of friends, and we're kind of wrapping up, and I'm leaving the restaurant, and there's literally two people I know drinking over at the bar. And one of them jumps up. She's like, Matt, oh my gosh, I just read your book, comes up and gives me a big hug. I mean, they'd had some drinks, and she just pours her heart out. This was so amazing for the business. It was literally everything from this North Star call that she shared. And then the husband pulls me aside and he's like, hey, and this also helped us just personally with our marriage, with other things we have going on. It basically, he said, it transcended business, the same idea, the same framework, and it's making our life better in other aspects. So I thought that was really cool.
Do you have a game plan on writing more or the next one that's coming out? Or you talked about the first one was in 1 year and then the decade later was the second one. Are you going on
Yeah.
that kind of timeline?
No, I'll do more. Right now I'm actually working. It's totally out of my lane. It's a total new thing, but it's just a heart and a passion project. I'm writing an illustrated kids book right now.
Oh,
It's called JJ Learns Jiu-Jitsu. So I'm a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu practitioner and professor. I've studied 16 years now and love working with the kiddos. So the book is the journey of a boy who's getting bullied and getting picked on and has no confidence, and wants to be invisible, and he finds jujitsu in a roundabout way and learns how to set boundaries and stand strong and gentle and kind. It's everything jujitsu is about. And I just started that, so it's a new lane that I'm in. But I do have two more business books they're right here right now, and I don't want to rush them. I want to take good time. I'd like to do one a year, but if it's one every couple of years, that's totally cool too.
you talked about jujitsu and getting involved in that 16 years ago. When did you want to get involved in that? And what's been the biggest thing it's taught you about yourself? You talked about the book that you're writing, or the kid's book is about a kid getting bullied. And that is something that you experienced growing up. Is this kind of using this as a reflection on what you went through and now helping other kids that are going through it possibly?
Yeah, yeah, a lot of things there. So the book, when a kid picks it up, he or she's going to get introduced to jujitsu, probably going to want to go try it out, right?
Yep.
Especially if they're getting bullied. And then the other, big part of that book is on the back end. I'm writing a parent's guide on how parents can have these conversations with their kids about, like, there's certain things you don't want to tell a kid when they're getting bullied. Like, it sounds nice, maybe coming out of your mouth, but it really doesn't help. And I personally experienced that. And there's, I want to give them a healthy way to have conversations about how to stand up for yourself and set boundaries and say, like, no, this isn't okay. So yeah, that's how that came about. But my first jujitsu class, I found that by accident.
Oh,
I When I met my wife and then met my wife's dad, he's a longtime decades martial artist. And I was out with college painters one night in college, drinking a lot, mouthed off to some guys in Denver, and I got jumped by some guys. I think I deserved it from what I recall. He hears about it, so he's like, "Hey, you've got some big muscles. I know you lift weights a lot, but you should probably learn some self-defense and some fighting." So I studied Israeli Krav Maga for 4 years, and then we moved back down to Loveland. And I'm literally just driving to the gym to go work out every day, driving by this mixed martial arts academy. And I'm like, I'll pop in one day and do some kickboxing, right? Because they had a big kickboxing sign on their sign. And I walk in during jujitsu class, and these guys are putting on their little pajama suits and tying their belts and wrestling around and flipping and flopping all over the mat. And they threw me out on the mats with a kid half my age, half my size. I'm like 26, 200 pounds of just meathead. And they threw me with like little Timmy, little teenage Timmy. And they're like, take it easy on him. And he just did whatever he wanted with me. He was throwing me and twisting me and choking me. And I'm tapping out, crying uncle. So it was a cool thing. I was hooked instantly.
when you're not working, you talked about jujitsu. What other things do you enjoy doing? Do you have more passion projects that you're finding that you've been enjoying?
Yeah, so I love just spending time with the family and being with the family. And I'd say we don't splurge on too many things. One of the things we do like to do, we invest a lot in, is travel. So I lived for a semester in Spain over in college, totally fell in love with it. So we like to get back over there. I like to get there individually with my kiddos, with the family. I'll take a father-son, father-daughter trip every year with one of the kids. So that's a big thing that we like to do. But yeah, we're pretty chill. We work hard. We spend a lot of time together. We're really enjoying. The kids are 15 and 12 now, so they're going to be out of the house soon. And then Emily's stuck with me.
Is there a location that is on like the bucket list that you guys are hoping as a family to go to one day?
We Emily and I just went to Hawaii. We were in Maui about a month before those fires, so that was really crazy just to come back from that and see just where we were just standing. But Ireland, we'd love to go to Ireland, love to go to Australia, love to check out Japan. And being spending time in Spain, I've had a chance to kind of drop down into Africa and see Morocco and some of the getting into the Middle Eastern and Arab influenced countries. So would love to go there, love to go to Turkey, Jordan. We've just got a bunch on the list.
So basically every country almost fit on your list.
Yeah,
It's
yeah, every
I like that you're
every
hitting
country.
all
Yeah,
over. Like it's not like one
yeah,
specific area. Because I'm the same way. I'm hoping to get out there and travel because that's
yeah.
something memorable. Is there anything from the places you've traveled to that something from the culture you brought home with you?
Yeah, so Spanish coffee is my big thing. So I discovered coffee in college. I wasn't a coffee drinker growing up, but just the way they make it and drink it and enjoy it over there, absolutely love it. So we we used to bring lots of coffee back from Spain, and we ended up importing like raw beans from a Kenyan coffee farm, and we roast them here locally, and we have a little free coffee bar in our office. It's called Cafe Sevilla. So it's a cool way to share the Spanish culture with people, show love to others, share coffee with them. And then we founded a scholarship at Colorado State University to send students over to Spain to study abroad. So people come in, grab a free coffee. It's always free. And then they'll donate into like a little tip jar for the scholarship. But I love that. And then I love cooking Spanish paella. And I do that here at the house. And then I like to do that for others as well. I have a paella hit list. So just big friends, I'll call them. I'll go, hey, don't eat dinner tonight. And they're like, oh, I know what Matt's doing. And then I go drop them a paella at their house.
We kind of talked about books that you're writing. I think a cookbook might come next. I'm thinking you could write one with all the different paella recipes.
Yeah, it's interesting. Paella is really cool because there's a general way that you make it. It's got its its base ingredients, but everybody puts their own little spin on it. So it's not out of the cards.
The final question I'll ask you, for someone that's listened to this interview based on your journey and experience, what tips or advice would you give them to overcome obstacles, accomplish their goals, and rise to the challenge?
Is spend time with people, search out and spend time with people that are doing that. And when you're in the process of doing that, watch out for people that just have that glass is always half empty and they're trying to pull you down. You have to break away from people sometimes that are preventing you from doing that, and find the people that are winning and what they're doing and just copy it.
Matt, I want to thank you so much for coming on the show and talking about your rise to the challenge. You're inspiring so many people, and we are excited to see what the future looks like for you.
Hey, Alex, thanks for having me on.
Tune in next time to hear my next guest talk about their rise to the challenge. Remember to follow, subscribe on all major audio platforms. And make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel to get full length episode and video format. What path do you take to accomplish your goals? You decide.